Comfortable? I'm Cheryl Johnson Ransaw here with the team from EDWS, Tony Pelode and Ryan Smith, and we again welcome you to our session on today's subject, Won't Lose This Dream. I'd like to just go over a couple of housekeeping ground rules that are pretty standard for our book club. Again, we invite everyone to just be comfortable and hope that you find this to be a meaningful gathering and selection for today. We encourage everyone to just be active as a listener. And again, we invite you certainly to feel free to make comments, raise questions, and definitely respond to questions that we may raise as well. Interested to hear if anyone has read today's selection, so if you'd want to make a note about that, we welcome that feedback as well, but that's certainly no requirement for attending today's session. We ask that everyone focus on respectful and productive conversations. And so again, this is about setting a comfortable, safe atmosphere for lively conversation and dialogue and hopefully meaningful topics. And certainly though, if there are concerns, questions, anything that you'd like to bring up as it relates to needing clarification on subject matter or statements, anything that's confusing or troubling, again, we invite you to feel free to share that feedback with us. We will be monitoring the chat feature throughout today's session. So again, feel free to enter your comments at any time. Today's book is written by the author Andrew Gumbel. And Andrew Gumbel is a British-born journalist who's currently based in Los Angeles. He's considered an investigative reporter, political columnist, and a feature writer, and is pretty renowned and has an extensive 20-year plus career as a foreign correspondent, covering stories throughout Europe and the Middle East and the Americas. Want to just take a few minutes and share some highlights about the book. And again, if anyone would like to just indicate if they are familiar with the book or have read the book, welcome that feedback. But essentially, this is a book that we thought was a timely selection as we gear up for fall and fall semester. It's hard to believe that we're winding down the summer. But this is a story about Georgia State, and it's about Georgia State's groundbreaking work in student success. And it's really been an exciting chapter for Georgia State and student success in terms of the work that has been done over several years. It's been a long journey for this area, and a lot of references have been made to the exciting work that's being done in this area as high tech and high touch, because the goals have been centered around really identifying ways to improve services, to really target lower income, non-white, first generation students. And this has been really a 20-year plus a journey that has been given quite a bit of notoriety, particularly with this book, but just with the work that's being done and the opportunity to share the good news that is taking place in student success. The book gets into extensive details about telling the story of how there was a lot of research that went into just analyzing and assessing the needs of students at Georgia State. And the focus has been one on implementing lots of new approaches. And again, this has been quite a journey over a long period of time that actually started with focusing on very small baby steps, as they might be considered, trying to demonstrate the value and the purpose of making some major changes, but doing it in increments. And so the initial target was one of showing small benefits and then scaling the programs university-wide. And one example that the book talks about that was an early project that was implemented was called Keep Hope Alive. And this was really a project that purposely was named in conjunction with the Hope Scholarship. And it was focused on the need for financial concerns, and addressing that is one area that has been a barrier for students for a number of years. And in addition to looking at academics, the effort with this project was one that addressed the concern that a lot of students who might have been eligible for the Hope Scholarship when they entered as freshmen at Georgia State, actually, because of a number of factors in terms of lifestyle and personal family struggles, as well as academics, lost the Hope Scholarship because of their GPA not being maintained for the requirements. And so the Keep Hope Alive was an intentional initiative set for students who might receive some additional supplemental financial help when they lost the Hope Scholarship, so that would at least allow them an opportunity to stay in school and bridge the gap, and certainly address their academics at the same time, but to give them that opportunity to stay the course. And it certainly has proven to be a very effective project, but again, just one of many that are that's highlighted in the book. The big numbers that have been promoted in terms of the effectiveness of the work that is taking place in student success has really centered on student retention and graduation rates. And the research, the data that has been analyzed officially dates back to 2003, at a time when it was reported that under 3,000 was the number of students who actually graduated. And that number represented 1/3 of actually those who were admitted. And from that point of 2003, fast forwarding to 2018, student success has been instrumental in helping to graduate more than 7,000 students, representing a 74% increase over a 15-year period. And again, that very simply gives some numbers, but the work that has gone into the student success is anything but simple. When we talk about the fact that the work in student success has been anything but simple, certainly the book gets into a lot of backstories and a lot of sharing of that journey that has taken place over a number of years, the highs and the lows, the barriers, in fact, and the mixed reviews. But certainly this has been a journey that has not necessarily been embraced by all, and it has taken a number of years, a number of building support and alliances to break through and to make some of the changes that it was felt truly were needed to help with increasing the success rate of these targeted students. It gets into details about the battles that needed to be fought through the process. Certainly those constituencies that needed to be won over. And again, this goes back over a number of years. It gets into points of resistance that really identifies a lot of individual stakeholders, key players that were important in terms of whether they were supportive or not, but how much was involved in trying to reach a point of success, literally and figuratively. But it came at a high price, and it came as a result of really needing to make the strong case of changing the way things had been done and rewriting and and letting go of some of the old ways that definitely had proven not to be effective. It's an interesting story, and it's one that's even interesting when we talk about the author who became involved in the project. Last September, in fact, Andrew Gumbel was invited to participate in a formal program and reception and book signing that took place on the campus. And during that period, he was formally interviewed by a number of individuals. And the Georgia State University magazine did a couple of really nice articles on him. His is an interesting background, but there was a particular point of concern about how he did become involved in the project to write the book. And so, very briefly, the story goes that he was identified through the Kresge Foundation, is a philanthropic organization that spearheaded this book project. And if you're not familiar with this foundation, it's been around for a very long time, and the mission has been one overall to promote human progress and identifying just a lot of areas of need, but particularly focused on addressing people in hardship and poverty. And so this was kind of an evolving interest of the Kresge Foundation to really make known what has been happening on Georgia State campus. And because fast forward again, Georgia State really has reached such national notoriety as a result of the work that has taken place in the student success program. There was just a strong push to get a book written. And so after a lot of meetings, a lot of people involved, it was also pointed out that this was an opportunity to not only talk about the obvious, which was the success of the work that's taking place at Georgia State, but this has also been an opportunity to talk about Georgia State's history and the state of Georgia's history. So if you haven't read the book, or if you have, you will know that not only is there so much information that talks about the work of student success, but it also aligns with talking and telling the story about Georgia State's history, which is an interesting one that has really gone through lots of different phases and stages. Most importantly, Andrew Gumbel offered that his focus and his primary interest, once he began to gather information about Georgia State, was to want to tell the story about how things did work out in terms of what was done differently. Certainly, to offer details as it relates to what actually has gone into the success of these programs, but also to talk about who has been affected, who has been transformed. And so there are a lot of stories about students, past and present, who have benefited from student success. Some students who actually are now working and are playing vital roles within student success. The author goes on to talk about his initial perception of Georgia State. And it's interesting because he owned up to the fact that initially he had never heard of Georgia State when he was approached about becoming the author of this book. And because of his background, he also acknowledged having very little experience with American higher education in general. And so with that kind of background of his, he also was open in acknowledging and addressing the fact that a big part of what this story entails is one of looking at class barriers, racial disparities, and the cost, the rising cost of higher education. But the author also admittedly talked about coming from a place of just really accepting that, yes, these things do exist. Um, and there was a thought that there was nothing that people could really do about them, that there was a sense of complacency. But he also talked very openly about the fact that once he began to do his research and began to interview the people involved in the work at Georgia State and the students who were involved, um, that he became very excited and very proud and pleased to be a part of the project because um, he was very impressed, to say the least, and wanted to be a part of just helping to make known what has taken place at Georgia State. So this was a book that was published in 2020. The work, the interviews, the research began in 2018, and the author interviewed nearly 100 people from across the university community, and that number included students, alumni, advisors, professors, deans. Some people have come and gone since the book has been published. Um, Certainly, the student success team um, was at the forefront, and this team is led by Tim Rennick and championed by Georgia State's former President Mark Becker. And so Dr. Rennick and Dr. Becker certainly were the key players, if you will, the key individuals, not only in spearheading and pushing and navigating this initiative, this change that took place through student success, but also spearheaded the actual book and their key players in terms of who was interviewed in the book. But also there were so many other people referenced. And again, because of the fact that there were so many people interviewed and there's so many people involved and responsible for what is happening in student success. Can't do it justice by trying to name all of those individuals, but we do invite people to check out their website because there's a lot of great information that tells the story. There are a couple of recorded interviews that are posted. Certainly, there's a list of all of the staff and their profiles. There are articles that have also been just written and archived. But if you are interested in learning more about the individuals, particularly in student success, we invite you to check out that website and go to those links. So I mentioned Dr. Rennick is the head of student success, serving as senior VP for student success, and he's also been on faculty. There are a lot of quotes in this book, and this is one that we thought was notable and significant in terms of summing up a lot of the essence of what not only this book is it about, but the work, the focus of student success. And his quote says, "There's something we can do after the students arrive at college that can have amazing and positive impacts at reversing those equity gaps." And that's the message that needs to get out. I'd like to pause here and just ask if anyone has any reactions to that quote, that really is at the essence of certainly what student success has been about. As you give that some thought, I also wanted to just make a note of another quote that was in the book from the former president, Dr. Becker, and his quote says, "Every student should enjoy a level playing field, and they should not be a victim of the zip code they were born into." Again, I ask if you reflect on this quote and have any thoughts, any reactions. We welcome and invite them at this time. And as referenced before, certainly Dr. Becker was, as they say, truly a champion of this cause, of the changes, of the growth that took place, um, backing and supporting student success. And this actually came at a time that he had just begun to serve as the president, that he took on this work of targeting student success and working very closely with Dr. Rennick in 2008. There have been a number of reviews of this book, and certainly there's some that have been what we consider mixed reviews, but for the most part, as we have done our research and looked at what we've come across, the majority of the reviews have been very positive. What we're showing here, just a few of many that exist, and again, we invite people to certainly do your own research if you haven't already, but most people have certainly recognized the work that has been done, and because of what has taken place over this 10 plus period in student success, there's been such national notoriety, and Georgia State has become the model, and Dr. Rennick and his colleagues have been approached and sought after in terms of offering insights and being resources for other institutions and other employer settings as well. There have been a number of awards that have been bestowed on student success. So it's been an exciting time that it's great to be a part of Georgia State as it relates to the success stories and what has come out of the work that has started and continues. I mentioned that the book is also an opportunity to learn about Georgia State's history, and history going back to the very early chapters of its existence. And so just wanting to share a few noteworthy items and ask your thoughts as you look over them, starting with the fact that Georgia State actually began as a commuter night school. And at different times over the years, it was technically a part of Georgia Tech and the University of Georgia. Some that's a little known fact, but one that really was significant in that chapter was one that lasted for quite a while and left some very strong impressions on people in terms of the kind of educational opportunities that people might gain as a result of the focus being on night school and as a commuter school. But also, Georgia State has been referred to as a quote, well-run Southern plantation in the past. And this is a direct quote from the book. And actually a quote from kind of coined by a faculty member. And this was back in probably the 70s or early 70s, but there have been a lot of references to the fact that not only did Georgia State begin as a night school, commuter school, but it also began and continued during a time when the state and the country was going through lots of different changes in terms of segregation and transitioning to mandated integration. And honestly, in the state of Georgia history, there was some resistance to integrating schools. And so there was a period of time, and again, there are details in the book that outline exactly some of the different changes that Georgia State went through in terms of first being aligned with the laws the way they were during those times, in terms of having restrictions on who might be admitted for enrollment as students, the resistance that took place, a lot of legal battles that took place, but it's an interesting history. And even after, certainly well into the period of the civil rights movement and changes occurring legally in terms of opening up more opportunities and creating less barriers for admitting students of all colors and ethnicities. There was still resistance from many people, as reported by some faculty, by some staff, and so that term "well-run Southern plantation" is in essence referring to kind of the old regime, or the tendencies of people to hang on to some of the old ways, the old customs, the old mindset, even though officially, technically, changes had taken place. So shifting from that history, certainly to fast forward to the fact that, again, Georgia State has received national recognition for the student success program. It's all most ironic to think about the history and the longstanding limitations officially that existed at a time when Georgia State was evolving to now the work of student success, attempting to certainly serve all students, but particularly targeting those students who we know have had the challenges, the barriers, the inequities, the inequalities that have caused tremendous difficulties in them having success in terms of staying in school and graduating. It's also interesting to not only talk about how far Georgia State has come in terms of growth and expansion, but the book also just recognizing that Georgia State has played an integral role in terms of the revitalization of the city of Atlanta. So there's a lot of storytelling, there's a lot of name dropping, if you will, in terms of not only key players within the higher education system, within the USG system in Georgia State, but also within the political arena in terms of more alliances forming and partnerships forming in terms of exploring ways that Georgia State and the city of Atlanta, certainly as we talk about, particularly the Atlanta campus, might benefit from working together collaboratively. And so it has been a win-win journey in that regard, in terms of helping all parties involved to benefit from the growth and revitalization of not only the city of Atlanta, but also Georgia State as well. So any thoughts or comments that anyone might like to share? Any reactions to some of these tidbits, these notable items that we've just touched on? Well, if you have not read the book, we encourage that you might consider doing so if you want to learn more about the details, the specifics, the profiles and the stories. There were so many stories of the students in particular who, some who were interviewed formally, but in essence, just the recognition that so many students have had the adversities and all of the challenges that once upon a time might have caused them to give up. And certainly the numbers have shown in the past that that's exactly what a lot of them had to do. There was definitely the recognition and the appreciation from students in particular who talked about how it made such a difference to have the support from student success staff and the approaches that were taken by the programs that were offered, just even in terms of communication. There was an attempt to look at how just making a difference in the communication style and approach could reach some students more so than some traditional means. And certainly social media was referenced, and the use of text messaging was referenced as well. But just very interesting stories about through all the adversities how the students found a way with the help through student success to get through and graduate. So it's a fascinating read, and there's a fascinating website that also shares a lot of information as well. See, there is one comment in the chat box just acknowledging that it really is fascinating to see the university has changed and improved over the last several decades. Yes, thank you for that comment. And it really is pretty amazing to, to, to look at what has taken place over several decades, how far Georgia State has truly come. We're going to shift our focus to just begin to wrap up for today's session. But before doing that, I would like to just say that we are always inviting feedback and suggestions for selections of books and movies. We have in the past have certainly taken a look at some movies as well, but more so books. And so as a follow-up, certainly to today's session, there will be an email sent to everyone in attendance with the PowerPoint from today, as well as a survey. And we definitely invite your feedback and ask that you consider if you have thoughts about books that you'd like for us to consider featuring. We are very happy to take that into consideration. If anyone has any thoughts or suggestions at this time, we're happy to entertain that as well. As always, we want to just highlight the resources that we are here to offer, and certainly as it relates to our unit, EDWS, as well as within the USG. Just hopefully for those of you in attendance, a review of what we do, and certainly want to acknowledge that there may be people attending who perhaps are not affiliated with Georgia State. If you are from other institutions, certainly we just want to be mindful of that as well, but we certainly just want to talk about the fact that we're here and available to offer health coaching, have our faculty and staff assistance program for internal EAP consultations and counseling and crisis management. We certainly want to promote always the Key Pro external EAP for all employees and dependents within the university system of Georgia, and always want to provide that contact information. And certainly want to mention too that we specifically offer through EDWS tobacco cessation programming, and that's also available as another option and other resources through the USG as well. We also want to just recognize some upcoming EDWS and USG events happening this week and next week. If you're on our mailing list, you perhaps have already received information about this week's offerings, and certainly every first of the month, we send out a monthly newsletter and publish an e-magazine and send out our monthly enrichment calendar that has all of our information about happenings. But this week, just wanting to underscore our live cooking demonstration that's scheduled on Thursday, and virtual guided meditation that's scheduled on Friday of this week. And then looking at two special events next week, on Tuesday, the mini stretch break, which is a regular offering, is on the calendar. And then on Wednesday of next week, there's a Key Pro offering that's a webinar on effective communication in the workplace. So just wanting to encourage people to check those out if you find any of those interesting. And again, these will be included in the PowerPoint that you'll receive. This pretty much wraps up our gathering for today. Again, we thank everyone for joining us for today's selection on Won't Lose This Dream. And again, if you're interested in learning more about the book or the work that Student Success is doing, just check out the website and consider picking up that book as well if you haven't read it. We're just proud of what they do and don't want to take that for granted. And it's nice to have an opportunity to talk about some positive work that's taking place right here on our campus. So we will wrap up for today, and certainly hope you have a good rest of the day. Take care, stay safe, and we hope to see you at our next gathering. Bye now.